Hello again, welcome back. We're using an Arcane Quality Build, 35 Strength for the Meteoric Ore Blade, 22 Dex for the Wrought Halberd. I don't even get around to using it, but it's in there. And then, of course, 50 Arcane, so that we bleed stuff. It's really 46, and I'm getting an additional 4 from the Albinauric Mask. So that's the stat spread. And, of course, enough endurance for this armor, because I like being a silly pinecone on my cousin Albinauric man. And then 60 vigor, because you always need vigor. I think I started as a hero. If you need more details on how the build was put together, go check out my Bloody Milady video. It's the second clip in that video where I show off the build in a little more detail. But I had got most of this footage before patch 113 came out. And so this is me trying out an arcane build, trying to figure out its identity. This was before I had learned that the Zamor curved sword can be a fantastic get-off-of-me tool for almost any build, because that weapon's Ash of War scales just with the weapon's upgrade level, not with your stats. So you can run Zamor Ice Storm on an arcane build and have a decent get-off-of-me tool. So you can do with that what you will. But I had some fun here. These poor guys, you may know it, but there's an, what is it called? The Basilisk statue. It's the 2 eyeballs on the far end of this chamber. If you are the host or one of his friends and you are within line of sight of that sucker, you are constantly building up Death Blight. Feels bad. That's how it is. But, so I'm playing with the Great Katana for the most part. Sword Dance. I would prefer Flaming Strike, but you can't have Flaming Strike on an arcane build if you still want that, scaling to work out well. I almost wish there was a Blood Flame Blade, Flaming Strike. That would probably be too strong. I don't know how they would, bounce it out. Maybe if it did a little less damage, it would be okay. But I love the idea that you hit somebody with a Blood Flame arc, and then you do a blood flame slash, and then your weapon has a little blood flame on it. I think that would be a phenomenal Ash of War. It's never going to happen. We're not going to get it. It would be too good. People would probably use it on martial builds just to get free bleed build up, especially on something as phenomenal as the Great Katana, because the Great Katana works well on lots of builds. Its requirements aren't too steep. It's got a great moveset, lots of pokes, and it comes with bleed. So why wouldn't you want it? I could see people trying to, well, I guess if it was like any other Ash of War and this hypothetical, imaginary Ash of War was really arcane scaling, then I guess you couldn't use it on a Pyromancer Faith build or any other build. It would have to probably be a martial build or an arcane build, and those would be your recourses, but that doesn't exist. We'll depart from that silly thought of mine. I was trying to find a decent get-off-of-me tool for this character before I discovered the Zamor curved sword, and so I was trying out the Omen killer cleaver with spinning slash. Why? It does decent damage per hit, and I was hoping it would supplement the blood loss. It wouldn't be as much blood loss as if I had blood infused it, but I was hoping that the raw damage would make it more useful, and I just wasn't good enough with it. I haven't practiced enough with great axes. My timing was a little off. You know, it's a skill issue. But the Zamor curved sword is a much easier get-off-of-me tool to use, and that was one I eventually put on the build. But for the most part, I utilized the Great Katana throughout these clips, and then I think for the last few clips, I actually start playing with the Milady after patch 113, where it gets its poise damage buff, and it feels so good, and I couldn't fit it into the other video, so it's in this one. But overall, Omen Killer Cleaver with Spinning Slash, it's okay. It's alright. Now, this clip was baffling. I had to show it to you. We see that flash of light on the cliff, and this guy's trying to use the Mimic Veil to change what he looks like, so he can hide as a prop on the weird cliff where you'd never think to look. But I got to see him changing. The camera was just perfect, and it doesn't show it because I have my silly character's icon in the corner, but he dropped like 200 or maybe 380 runes, so the guy's like a base level character. Why he's here trying to Taunter's Tongue to grief people, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is they were trying to cooperatively AFK farm. They picked the strangest place to do it. They had like 200 ping a pop, so I don't know what they were planning, but maybe they're thinking, oh, you can just leave your game on idle and you'll get money from all the invaders that'll show up and eventually quit. And their plan fell apart immediately. I don't know. That's the closest I can think of for a comprehensive plan that they might have had. But let's get back to the Great Katana a little bit. I've talked about it having good pokes. It's got good reach. It doesn't have hyper armor, I don't believe. You might be able to get hyper armor on an Ash of War with it, but its normal moveset I don't believe has hyper armor. I think there's a katana that defeats that standard for the whole family of weapons, so I think it's the Rakshasa. I think it might even have hyper armor one-handed offhand even, so don't quote me on that one, but I'm pretty certain the Rakshasa has hyper armor, and if nothing else, its Ash of War most certainly does have hyper armor, at least some of it. And that's kind of scary, because I'm pretty certain if this weapon had hyper armor all the time, it would be a colossal chore to deal with, so I'm fine with it not having hyper armor. I will stick it in the same class of weapon as, say, heavy thrusting sword, you know, where it's got reach, it has pretty good stagger, it doesn't need hyper armor, you know? I'm trying to remember if halberds have any hyper armor. I don't think so. I could be wrong in that one. That's just me having a gap in my knowledge, so ignore that entire thought there. Halberds are still good, though. I really like halberds. They stagger, they have reach, they got pokes. Why wouldn't you like them? But the whole reason behind this build, or the reason why I put it together the way I did, is I wanted to use the Meteoric or Greatsword. And look, I'm pulling it out. Because I've used it on a strength build. I did it a little bit in another video. I'm still trying to get the spacing down, because ideally you hit somebody and you don't hit them with the tip, because if you hit him with the tip of the sword with its Ash of War, you're not going to hit him with the explosion. But this guy must have had some latency, because I hit him with the good middle part of the sword, maybe even the close middle part of the sword, and the explosion still doesn't catch him. So I think latency notwithstanding, that Ash of War is supposed to combo. And I've seen it combo a lot, and it's tasty. But whenever you have a slow weapon, you probably want a fast weapon on hand so that people don't get used to your timing. And what's great for that? Offhand hatchet. Oh, I love you, offhand hatchet. Offhand hatchet, if I even said that right. The offhand hatchet, if you don't know, has 150 poise damage on its first hit of its string, which is great. A lot of people like to stick a weapon in their offhand, right? They'll stick a dagger in their offhand, they'll stick a light thrusting sword in their offhand, or a curved sword. You know, these fast weapons that are nice as an offhand weapon, but usually they do, I think, with the thrusting sword and the curved no, it's just the regular curved sword, like a Shamshir or something, right? Or a clean rod sword. If you have either of those in your offhand, I think it does 88 points of poise damage on its first hit. It used to not. That's a recent phenomena. I think the light thrusting swords were bugged for a good while and would hit for 100 and something. It was like 108 or something, I think. It was bugged, I think. But either way, they do 88 now, which is okay. You know, you can bully people with that one. If you're smart, you could poise break with it, get some chip damage in, chase people. But the offhand hatchet, 150 poise damage. That means that if somebody's even wearing a full bull goat outfit and they have the bull goat talisman, 133 and some decimal points worth of poise, the first swing of the hatchet will poise break them, assuming they don't have hyper armor. And do you see that? White light charge into white light charge kills both of them. Oh, the weapon's beautiful. Normally, I'm not a fan of the big anime, the big lasers, the big spectacle. I like the fantasy realism, mostly. For some reason, the white light charge on the Meteoric or Greatsword, that's a mouthful, could be a tongue twister if you try to say it fast enough, it activates the neuron in me. I really like it. It's so stupid. You just charge with this big, sharp piece of rock, and it explodes after you stab them. It's a 13-year-old's idea of cool, and I'm here for it. I think it's so funny, it's so bizarre, but for some reason I like it. It's like how I don't really care for the weeb weapons of this game, the cross naginata, the regular katanas. They just don't appeal to me. A lot of dex weapons don't appeal to me, but for some reason when they made the katana big, I believe I've said this before, it clicked. I really like the great katanas. I like the white light charge. My only regret on this build is having so little mana. I started as the hero so that I could have intelligence and faith kind of be my dump stats that I wouldn't invest points into, because I wanted arcane and I wanted strength predominantly. And so I went with the hero, I believe it's called, the fella that starts with the axe and looks like a barbarian, that class. And so because I don't have faith and I don't have int and arcane is my stat of choice, they also have only 9 mind to start with, and vagabond starts with 10, and when your mind is that low, you feel the difference even in a single point. At least I do. Oh my goodness, and then we get the roll catch. We turn this awful little kill box into situation into a win. And that's why I like the white light charge. It's not exactly a get off of me tool, but it can be a great way to initiate a fight because you lunge, you stab, that does decent damage on its own. Even if that was the only move it had, it would probably be okay. But it gets a follow-up explosion, and the explosion is meaty enough and large enough, you can sometimes hit somebody who's behind you who's close enough. And that's cool. I really like that. It's silly. And now we're back to using the Milady. We are no longer on patch 112, we are now on patch 113 for these few remaining clips. And I must say, I really like the goofy Milady now. It's everything I want it to be. Look at that juke. Oh, I wish it got more than one of them down there. I don't know if I could have delayed it any longer. We have so many close calls. But look at this. I'm able to smack him, get lots of repeated hits, and he's gonna bleed soon, I believe. He might roll it. The latency could be a little funky. I don't remember this clip as clearly as I'd like. But yeah, we get the bleed off, scares him off. I'm able to reset. Multi-hits on the Milady plus bleed. Oh, I feel like that should probably be the real core weapon for this. Though, having my core weapons be the Milady, the Great Katana, and the Meteoric or Greatsword, and then I guess the Zamor curved sword for its Ash of War. Those 4 weapons alone make this kit feel really good. You have a lot of options just in those 4 weapons, and you could run that setup on a strength build for the most part. I'm trying to think about it. Yeah, Zamor curved sword would work because it just uses the upgrade level for the Ash of War. You know, you got the Great Katana could work on a Great Katana and Milady can both work on a strength build, and of course the Ancient Meteoric or Greatsword. You could run this mirrored on a strength build with just minimum 19 arcane and have a wonderful time with it. Though if you are going to use it on a physical build, get the new greases. They add pretty decent damage to it, and if you're getting multi-hits, you might notice it a little even after flat defenses. Or you could just put a status on there. But look at that, I finally found a time and place for the Moghwyn Sacred Spear. If you don't know, Moghwyn Sacred Spear's Ash of War used to hit sequentially in bursts of 3, or it had 3 attacks that hit multiple times each. And it used to stagger people. It used to do enough poise damage, you'd kind of hold people in place and make it hard to escape. Now it does no poise damage, so if anybody's on their toes, if they got their head on straight, they can just leave. But in a situation where everybody's coming down an elevator and you have time to start it up, it worked just fine. I caught them in at the radius, and it finished off the host. So Moghwyn Sacred Spear still has a place on the quality arcane build. It's just incredibly niche. And I need to play with it, but there is it the Blood Fiend Fork? Or the Blood Fiend Sacred Spear? It's a new Sacred Spear, I believe, that has an Ash of War, kind of like Moghwyn Sacred Spear, but it throws it. It throws the bubble. And I think it hits less. I think it does less damage. I think it's incredibly hard to aim as well. I don't think it's very good. I played with it a little, didn't find any good results. If anybody knows the trick to the new Blood Fiend Sacred Spear that throws the Moghwyn bleed bubble, let me know. I want to hear all of those details. But here we are at our closing clip, and while I was struggling initially to find the identity of this build, thanks to patch 113, I think I understand what the build has and where it excels. I can get my bleeds off a little better. And since I'm a casual invader, it's important to find things that work together, that you can learn and get to use well, because unfortunately I just don't have as much time as I'd like to get good. But I can get good enough, and that can provide a nice narrative difficulty for anyone I'm invading, because at the end of the day it's still an RPG, and I want people to have their adventures. I just want to show up too. I want to be the bad red man, and I want to give you a challenge, and if you beat me into the dust, I deserve it, I suppose. And then you gotta pat yourselves on the back or something. As long as you're honestly progressing through the level, everything should be just fine. But thanks for joining me today. I hope you have a phenomenal day, and you better treat yourself to something. I don't know what it is, but treat yourself. And I will have more videos down the pipeline soon. Thank you, and bye-bye now.